How did you find out that these doctors were like sexually open?
By having sex with them.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
At least some of them.
Good case study.
This is episode 28 of 1F Jeff.
28 sits at a strange crossroads, a perfect number that ancient mathematicians treated with awe, and the capstone of a 4-cycle run, long seen as the threshold into real adulthood. It shows up in the body's lunar-leaning 28-day rhythms that shaped early timekeeping and folk magic. And in Kabbalah, it matches Koch, potential, giving 28 the feel of a quiet engine number, one that completes a cycle and hands you the power to move forward.
Hello, my friends. Jeff Taylor here, back in my makeshift recording studio here in Columbus, Ohio. I did not have a guest for this week's episode either, but fortunately, I heard from Chris Ryan earlier today, and he said he's going to release the episode that I recorded with him for his podcast tomorrow, and I asked him if he could send me the audio so I could release it on my podcast as well, and he graciously agreed. So I'm going to release this conversation on my podcast tomorrow, because it is more of a conversation than it is an interview, and I think it suits both of our podcasts in that sense. So, in a sense, my guest today is Chris Ryan.
Chris Ryan is an author and podcaster best known for Sex at Dawn, where he argues that early humans lived far more cooperatively and less monogamously than we assume today. He has a PhD in psychology, a taste for dismantling tidy modern narratives, and a podcast called Tangentially Speaking, where he follows his curiosity into conversations about culture, evolution, and how mismatched we often are with the world we built.
I'm truly grateful to have had the opportunity to meet and be on Chris Ryan's podcast. I've been a fan for several years, and it just kind of randomly happened. Life is random sometimes. Patreon subscribers, thank you so much. I appreciate your continued support as always. I'll be posting some more exclusive content for you in the next week or 2 or 3. If you yourself would like to support the podcast, help me buy some more Christmas gifts, help me get by in this holiday season without a job, please go to patreon.com/1FJeff and sign up for as little as $5 a month. $5 a month, that's nothing. But please don't use your iPhone to do it. Subscribe on the Patreon page, because Apple takes 30% of all donations made through the Patreon app, because Apple is greedy. Sorry, Apple, you are. I hope that doesn't hurt my algorithm. Help support the podcast, help support me, and get some exclusive content. Patreon.com/1FJeff. Thank you very, very much. And now you can pause the podcast for a moment, go to your computer, and do that. Okay, thank you very much. Anyway, I hope you enjoy this conversation with Chris as much as I enjoyed having it. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Here is me and Chris Ryan sitting outside his house in Crestone, Colorado, overlooking the San Luis Valley.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sitting in the morning sun here in Crestone, Colorado with one F Jeff, not one Jeff. 1F Jeff, 1F Jeff Taylor. And this will be an interesting podcast because I don't remember exactly what it is that I found so interesting about you when we met for a beer, but I do remember thinking, I should do a podcast with that guy. He's interesting. I did watch your film.
Which one?
Didn't you send me coverage?
The 9/11 one, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I remember the quote. I wrote down the quote, too. Remember, you were asking me what inspired me to make that, and there was a Burroughs quote. What was it? Sexual arousal results from the repetition and impact of image. It was kind of and that in the movie Crash by Cronenberg. You ever see that one? People who get sexually aroused by car crashes.
I've never seen that.
It's quite, people hate it, but I actually loved it. But it's not a well-liked Cronenberg film by any means.
Wasn't there a film called Crash that won the Oscar?
Yeah, not that one.
I've seen that one.
That was a controversial one.
That was controversial.
Yeah, but this one's controversial, but nobody saw it, so it can't be. I mean, they're like, blood and semen mixing on the car seat.
Right.
The book's actually even better.
Cronenberg's a little intense.
He can be, sure.
Yeah. Okay, but let's talk about that quote a little bit, because I watched the film and it's very interesting. It's a couple. It opens with what seems to be erotic failure.
Yeah.
The guy can't get it up or can't come or something.
Yeah.
And so there's this sort of like impasse and awkwardness and all that. And then 9/11 happens and he finds his mojo watching the Twin Towers come down, and then the drama ensues. But so Burroughs quote that eroticism or erotic charge comes from repeated viewing of an image.
Yeah. Repetition and impact of image.
But what image? Not just any old image.
Right.
Right. I mean, an image of a naked woman, okay, and also, okay, so two things. What kind of image? And also, I would think that would be less applicable to women than to men, given that women's sexuality is less visual than men's.
Sure, I agree with that. I mean, I think it was that quote combined with the somewhat phallic nature of the World Trade Center and the fact that they were playing it, I mean, that week or two, I mean, it was all day, every day. They were
America under attack.
I mean, it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like literally the whole week you couldn't watch anything. But the world.
The fragmented statement appears to be referencing the widespread media coverage following the September 11, 2001 attacks on the World Trade Center, indicating that news related to
Fuck
the event.
you! Shut the fuck up. What happened?
You got to leave that in.
That's weird.
AI just chimes in.
That's weird. It kept recording while that happened.
Well, I hope it got it.
That was very strange. Okay, well, if it's recorded, I guess we'll leave it.
Yeah, you got to leave that one in.
Fucking technology is jumping out.
AI's invading your podcast.
That's never happened before. Yeah, I was in Spain when it happened, so I wasn't subjected to that.
Oh, well, good for you.
But it's interesting to think that the collapse of the World Trade Center would be phallic. I would think that would cause more erectile dysfunction than
Well,
than erectile.
yeah, I guess that's about. They could probably make it into some sort of an erectile dysfunction commercial if they really wanted to.
Yeah.
Do you remember
Soon.
when they first opened the World Trade Center, the new museum, the new tower, and the museum in there? At the very beginning, they sold a United States shaped cheese platter, and it had like the dots where the planes had hit.
On a cheese platter?
Yeah, they got rid of it pretty quickly. I guess they're collector's items now.
I don't know.
It was very misguided.
How could you collect a cheese platter? That would.
But I mean, just to use that 9/11 on a cheese platter, it seems like if you bring that out at a party, it's not going to lift the mood. It's going to be like, oh, well, that's a
Yeah.
Did you like the movie?
Yeah. It was disturbing.
Sure.
Certainly.
My mom liked it, which made me happy.
That's
My
good.
dad, not so much. Yeah.
What was your dad's complaint?
He never really said, he didn't really complain about it. I think he was just troubled by just the whole thing. My mom's quote was, that I'll always remember, she's like, honey, you nailed it. You nailed it. And I was like, oh, I'll take that, Mom. I'll take it.
Well, so what do you think? To me, it was, it kind of spoke to the Freudian, eros and thanatos, the death impulse and the erotic impulse
Sure.
being intertwined.
Sure.
And it made me think about when I worked in hospitals in Spain. I found, in Spain, a lot of doctors are women. And I really enjoyed working in hospitals and hanging out with doctors because they seemed to be uninhibited sexually.
Really?
And we talked about, why are you so uninhibited compared to the normal Spanish person? And generally their take was when you're around death, you lose sexual inhibition.
Huh.
Because there's something about sex that's it's about life, right?
Right,
Eros
right,
is
right.
life
It's all
force.
there,
And
yeah.
so when you're around death, there's an impulse to cultivate the life force.
Huh. How did you find out that these doctors were, sexually, open.
By having sex with them.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
At least some of them.
Good case study. Right?
The women. Yeah. No, I was doing research around, I was doing a PhD research where I was specifically studying the doctors who deal with a lot of death. So oncologists and intensive care physicians. And so I was interviewing them, and then I was teaching English, so I would focus my teaching. So I'd take students who were working in specializations that I found interesting, and so I met a lot of them, and we talked a lot, and it's interesting. And then I've spoken to other people who talk about war being very erotic.
Right. I could see that.
Anything where there's a lot of drama and life or death stuff seems to reduce inhibition and increase libido.
I should have had you come speak at one of the Q&As for the film. You could have explained it better than I did.
Wow.
It's funny.
That's just my take on it.
No, it's an interesting take. I had a lot of interesting reactions to that film. The people did walk out of the theater. People would write me. I got like emails. People would write me, and some people were like, once you finish a film, it's not yours anymore. So whatever I think it is, and some people's interpretation of it was really there were some very unique interpretations of the film, but it didn't do terribly well on the festival circuit. We got into a lot of erotic film festival, like the Porn Film Festival in Berlin or something, which is very big, apparently. And like we were in the Cynic Kink, and that's a traveling erotic, and like we played right after like this. I've never experienced this before in my life, but like, our block, I don't know, right before our movie, there was like, we walk into the theater and it's just a big, full screen, just fisting.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm not surprised it didn't do well, because it's not a porn film. It's not there is eroticism, but it's
not sexy.
It's complex.
Yeah.
Did you get accused of making light of 9/11?
Yeah, and I could always my argument there was like, well, is it I'm just pointing a finger. A lot of it was also about the mass media's oversaturation of the. So a lot of my argument was like, well, no, it's actually what I was pointing a finger at is more the mass media. Is it me or is it the mass media that was playing it over and over and over and over and over?
Right.
But it wasn't a lot of that actually.
Yeah.
But it almost got into Sundance, so that was. It was good to find out that it almost got in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that the only film you've made, or?
No, I've made. A handful. The one I made after that was that got into Sundance, and that was like I'd gone through a horrible breakup with the actress that was in coverage, actually.
Oh.
And the actor who was in coverage went through a horrible breakup as well. So we got together and just decided we're going to make some very quick and easy thing, improvised, and had no real intent to make it anything. We were going to make a feature, but we never finished it, so I just made it into a short. Spent like $500 and, edited it a lot, and then, submitted it to a bunch of festivals. One festival took it, then nobody else, and then Sundance took it.
And what's it about?
It's basically just a guy in his like mid to late 30s. It's a very it's like more of a mood piece but it's a guy in his mid 30s just kind of struggling to come to terms with the end of his relationship that he thought was going to go on, and trying to figure out what his life looks like post relationship and understand the nature of the breakup and why and so forth and so on.
And then he takes flight classes and flies a plane into a building.
There you go. Yeah, that's coverage part 2.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
The sequel.
That could be a prequel, actually, maybe.
Yeah, right.
Because I had a jokey idea to do a sequel. We had all sorts of. That was a funny film to make, because like the jokes that we would make, like disaster baiting was the term we came up with for this.
Disasterbation. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if there is an erotic component to what's going on. I know you worked in politics for a while, so I wanted to get some of your thoughts on the political scene. But, as we're speaking, it's Tuesday?
21st, maybe?
After the No Kings marches on Sunday, which Trump responded to by releasing an AI film of himself bombing American cities and shit.
Yeah, amazing times we live in. I mean, who? Honestly, at a certain point, I feel like you just have to like. I mean, it's a sad laughter, but it's a laughter still. Like, it's like, I mean, how far off the rails can this country go? Yeah. I mean, I could. Yeah. Yeah, it's scary. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I feel like there's so many things happening. You know, they say they're flooding the zone. You know, so
with shit.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it really works. It works very effectively because the things that happened even 3 months ago, it's like I don't even remember a lot of those because it's one thing after the other. Underneath it, although, I think I was talking to a friend of mine from the Lincoln Project, my podcast, a couple weeks ago, and she was basically saying that you know, Trump is more like a cudgel, right? It's really easy for the Democrats to use Trump, like the organization we worked, like Lincoln Project that we worked for, who I'm a little bit leery of saying, but because I signed an NDA, but if I don't say anything bad about them, I think we're in good shape. The argument was always democracy versus Trump, right? But like, what even is democracy in America anymore? Like, do we have a democracy? Like, when's the last time we had a real democracy in America? And it's like, Trump is a very convenient figure to make the overall enemy, but really it's a systemic problem. It's a systemic collapse problem. And I think the Democrats are almost just as comfortable using Trump as a cudgel as the Republicans are to use him as their tool to get everything they've ever wanted.
But it's not everything they've ever wanted. The wants are new, right? What Republicans used to want was conservative.
Yeah.
And Trump's anything but conservative.
I think some of them, sure, but I think there's a certain handful of them that have had like a long list of things, like what's Project 2025 or whatever it is, have had a long list of things that they wanted to do, and they just needed like a clever buffoon to put in there as the figurehead, and then they can behind the scenes just kind of do whatever they want.
Yeah, similar to the Reagan administration.
Yeah.
Another sort of TV screen presence to attract attention while we do our things.
Right, that's actually interesting. I think this is like times 10. I mean, It's crazy that they had the same, isn't it both, Make America Great Again was both of their slogans, wasn't it?
It was Morning in America.
Morning in America.
Same thing.
Same kind of a thing.
I don't remember any baseball hats,
right.
but
no.
There's a lot of the same kind of racist rhetoric.
I went to the Trump store in Branson, Missouri. I was on my road trip across the country, and I went to went to Branson, because you've ever been to Branson, Missouri?
Never been.
It's something to see. It's something to see. It's like a combination of combination of Las Vegas, Niagara Falls. I mean, it's in the Ozarks, so it's like, it's pretty. But, I think there's like 30 mini golf courses in the area. There's like a whole replica of the Titanic. It's a strange town. And remember Yakov Smirnoff?
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought he was dead. I didn't even know he was alive. He's got a comedy club there called Yakov's. I was going to go see him, but he wasn't doing that night.
Russia's not funny anymore.
What's he doing now? Yeah, that's the question. Like, how
Yeah.
is he doing? Anyway.
Yakov Smirnoff. Wow.
Yeah, and they have more theater seats than New York City in Branson, Missouri.
And what, it's like Grand Ole Opry kind of shit?
It's like washed. It's a lot of washed up. I think old stars but yeah, I think it's like after you go on the Grand Ole Opry, maybe you go to Branson and just do a run there. Yeah.
Like you're not up to Vegas.
Yeah, something like that.
And you're kind of like Jeff Foxworthy.
But your appeal is there. Like it's a different appeal than Vegas. Like it's a different, it's the South, so Southern Missouri. Anyway, there's a Trump store there. There's actually two. So I was like, I gotta, you'll know how many times you get to go to a Trump store, and it was something else. I mean, it was crowded. There's an animatronic Trump outside, like waving at you, all sorts of, and all the hats. Gulf of America, blah, blah, blah. And then the one hat that I noticed, if they're all Trump slogans, make
spelled with an O, Gulf of America.
Right, Barron for president.
Great.
And then one of them just said titties. But it was in it had an American red, white, and blue.
This is a shirt?
No, it was just a hat.
Oh, a
It
hat.
just said titties. Yeah.
Titties.
Titties. Yeah.
Well, how can you argue with that?
No, it was the only one that was unrelated to politics for Trump, which was interesting.
Yeah.
Almost bought it, but thought, no, $40 for a titties hat.
And where are you going to wear it?
When am I going to wear that?
Yeah,
for Halloween maybe, but even then,
What are you going as?
Right. I mean,
a Hooters manager?
I don't even know if a Hooters manager would wear. I mean, that's a little. Some of them would, I would think. And then there's a Jesus store right down the street from the Trump store, which I went to as well.
A Jesus.
It's like
store.
Jesus merch, right? It's all Jesus merch, and it's like very similar to the Trump store. Very surprisingly similar to the Trump store, actually. It's just a different character.
So, have you been paying attention to politics your whole life? Or, I mean, you mentioned that you worked for the Lincoln Project. We can talk about that or not, depending on your comfort level. But was your work with them because of an interest in politics, or it was just a job and you're a video editor and there you go?
Yeah, it really kind of randomly happened. I've certainly, I've paid attention to politics for a good portion of my life, on and off. I mean, during Obama, I didn't really, because you didn't really, I guess, have to as much because it was just,
Kind of normal.
But yeah, no, I got during COVID, it was 2020, I got laid off. I was working in marketing at Hollister, like the clothing. We're selling clothing, jeans to teenagers.
Right, Hollister, which is a tiny town in California.
Yeah, and they've had it's not based on that. That's not at all what the clothing brand is based on. I think there was some sort of a lawsuit settlement or something.
Yeah, I remember reading something about that.
Yeah. Well, Abercrombie and Fitch has had their own share of problems, and that's the parent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, I got laid off from there during that summer, and a buddy of mine, and this is when the Lincoln Project was just starting to get really big, and a buddy of mine from New York called me, and he's like, "Oh, I know a guy at the Lincoln Project. They're looking for somebody." And weirdly enough, I'd already been making weird Trump mashups. I made just weird videos for the Lincoln Project, like funny, weird, satirical, blah blah blah. And I'd already made some weird things. When I don't really know why, but it felt, it felt fun. I don't know. Anyway, so I already had work to show him, and so yeah, I was only supposed to work there for 3 months, and it was crazy. I've never had so much, as a video person, you don't, it's about how many people see your thing, right, to a great degree. And the first thing I made was goes up online. It's 1 million people have watched it in 5 hours, and it was just whoa, dude. So that was fun, and. Yeah, but no, never intended to get into politics, and don't plan to do that again. 4.5 years was enough.
Why is that?
It's a complicated question, but I would say primarily because my job required me to watch. I've seen more Trump speeches than probably most people on the planet.
Right.
I know his bits. I would watch him hone a routine. The toilets don't flush. He would hone that and get laughs from that. He's a stand-up comic at heart when he does these rallies. And watching CPAC, CPAC, I'd have to watch the whole weekend would be blocked off to just watch it. Yeah.
That'll rot your brain.
Right. I mean, so I know a lot. We're well familiar with who Charlie Kirk was. I knew all these people and it just became hard to live in that darkness. Yeah. Beyond that, just not even just watching the right-wing content. It was more just experiencing the, I feel rot and grift that is politics in general, from the inside to a degree.
Right.
Was, yeah.
So you did your experience, and I know we have an NDA to
I'm walking on a fine line
here.
Yeah.
But I'm not talking about the Lincoln Project specifically, just your general insider's view of politics did not leave you inspired and hopeful.
No. I mean, no. I feel a lot of politics is a grift. There's a lot of people making a lot of money off of politics, and I think that's the heart of the problem with our political system in general is money. Yeah. There's I think it was Missouri or Montana. I heard they're actually the state is trying. You've heard this, that they're trying to basically say the corporations can't donate to, and that could hold up because the Supreme Court has a lot of precedent on states' rights.
Right, and that what was the Supreme Court case that that said money is free speech and Citizens United. Yeah, that's based on states regulations of corporations. And so Montana is saying, well, then we can regulate that corporations are not allowed to spend money on politics. And apparently that's totally within the Supreme Court judgment, so it doesn't even need to go back to the Supreme Court.
Right. Although
Well,
I'm
that's
sure
interesting.
They'll find a way to make it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, my concern is like, in order to get money out of politics, you got to find a candidate who's, an anti-corporate candidate, but 95% of the time the candidate with the most money wins. So how do you even get the money? You need to find some insanely wealthy, progressive to actually run. But I don't know any insanely wealthy progressives.
Who's willing to risk his life?
Right.
Because if he gets close to winning,
Then the powers that be will move in.
they're not going to let. Yeah, they're not going to let anything that would truly change the system
Right.
into power. You know that Frank Zappa line that politics is the entertainment division of the military-industrial complex.
Right.
I think about that a lot.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. As cynical and jaded as I am about American politics, it does feel like what's happening now is something qualitatively different.
For sure.
Obama was blowing up wedding parties in Yemen, but he wasn't releasing videos of himself shitting on Chicago,
Right. Yeah, I mean, it
there's
seems
a
like
contempt to, and also it seems to me that they've already decided there aren't going to be more elections, so they don't give a fuck.
it seems very much like they're trying to make this a one-party country. And whether they can do that or not, I don't know. Like, there is some buffoonery in that administration, fortunately.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like there's a pilot flying the plane who is blind, drunk, and has no idea how to fly a plane.
But yet I think there's a few people in there that aren't blind, drunk, or anything like that, and those are the ones that are really pulling the levers. Like, what's that, Stephen Miller?
Yeah.
That guy's a demon. And he's the person who's doing most of this immigration madness. But yeah, it certainly seems like, and you try to think of times in history that have been similar to how bad this is, and like I'm not very good with the history, I don't know, but like early 20s, something like that. I mean, there were bad periods in America. My question, I guess, is when I think about it, is like, how do we get out of this? Like, how do we return to normal? What does that even mean? How does that happen? I don't see the country being able to do that. I think that it'll return to something, but whatever it is, isn't going to be what we define as normal, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, it feels like we need to hit rock bottom. When I think about times of significant change, like Teddy Roosevelt going after the monopolies and the big, railroad companies and all that in the early 20th century, the country was at the brink of revolution. And then you think about, the sort of regulations coming into effect in the 1920s after Upton Sinclair wrote The Jungle, describing the meat packing plants and the rats and the feces and all the shit. And then, okay, we'll do some regulation.
Right.
And then FDR with the New Deal, or was it the
New Deal?
Yeah. Great Society was Lyndon Johnson. It's like, I think the country needs to be on the verge of revolution before and then they'll just give you enough to quiet you down.
Right. I mean, it's also maybe a war of some sort. I mean, some sort of a catastrophic event to cause a reset.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we'd have to live through that catastrophic event in order for the reset to happen. Or if Trump dies, I mean, he's never going to die, though. He's going to live till that motherfucker's going to live till he's like 100, probably.
I think he's like Lassie. I think they've got like 10 Trumps in the green room waiting to
You might be right. You might be right. Or if after he dies, they do like a Weekend at Bernie's thing where they just carrying him around.
Got so much makeup you wouldn't notice.
But who jumps in? I don't know. That's what people say. It's like once he's gone, they don't really have anybody to jump in. But I don't know that I agree with that. I feel like.
Well, but like you said, he's got so much stage presence and a twisted kind of charisma. I don't see anyone else in the wings who can who can command that kind of attention.
No.
J.D. Vance is a weaselly little fuck.
He really is.
Everyone knows it.
Yeah.
He doesn't inspire any kind of
No.
fear or admiration. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the hell's happening, man. That's why I live in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, it's a solid idea. I kind of want to get out of the country, but we'll see if I can make that happen.
Well, weren't you living in Mexico City for a while?
I was
there?
like there for a month and a half or so earlier this year after I lost the job. Yeah, I loved it. I'd never been to Mexico City. Had no idea what to expect, but boy, something going on down there. I really liked it.
Yeah. It's a
Beautiful
nice
place, wonderful people. The warmth of Latino culture really is like somewhat like as an American, it's like at first it's like a little off-putting, and then you're like, oh, they really are that friendly. They're just, I really like that. Yeah, the vibes are better.
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time in Mexico. I like it a lot. It's hard. It's always hard for me to wrap my head around the evil Mexican assassins and, the cartels and all that, because my experience of Mexican people is like so kind and kind of simple in a good way, but I guess that's similar to my experience of Africans as well. And they can, man, if things go wrong in Africa,
right,
shit gets really crazy.
Or even in America. I mean, I find most people I meet when I'm driving across the country, everybody's super friendly, but there's certainly a darkness.
Yeah, I read something recently, I think it was on Substack, somebody posted, if you want to hate America, watch the news. If you want to love it, drive across the country.
It's true. I drove across the country and I met a lot of wonderful people, actually. Yeah. I'd never done that before. It's a large country we have here.
You've never driven across the country?
No, I mean, when I was young, we drove with a family trip from Ohio to Aspen, but never just, all the way over to California and then down through. Yeah. And, I was unemployed. I'm still relatively unemployed. And I was like, when else am I going to have a chance to do this, And yeah, it was great. 50 days, 49 days.
Well, okay, that wasn't an interstate highway drive. That was a meandering drive.
Yeah, and I wasn't moving the whole time. I was staying with some friends in San Jose for a while. I stayed with my sister up in San Francisco. And, but yeah, and then went to Bogota for a week. Been to Bogota?
Never.
Traffic problems, real bad traffic. I think it's like the worst traffic in any major city in the world. It's really pretty bad.
Yeah, no, I always wanted to go to Colombia, but when I was doing a lot of traveling in the 80s, Colombia was, off limits. People were getting kidnapped at the airport. You wouldn't even get to your hotel.
Yeah. Yeah, like Medellin, they say it's a beautiful city now, but that was the headquarters there back in the day.
Yeah, no, beautiful city. I almost went 4 or 5 years ago. I was planning a trip there, and I had a friend whose wife, I guess his wife's Venezuelan, but first he knows people in Colombia. Anyway, he was like, hey, I have a friend who has an apartment in Medellin, and let me ask him, if you can stay there. He's not, I know he's in London now, whatever. And he got back to me. He's like, yeah, hey, you can stay in his apartment. He said, it's free, nobody's there, and the doorman will let you in and all that. And so I got that far into the trip. Anyway, we ended up not going. I forget, some family shit came up or something. But later I learned that his friend was the ex-mayor of Medellin. So, what kind of apartment did I turn down?
Yeah, you got turned down the most
nice apartment.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
although also, do you want to be staying in the ex-mayor's apartment?
Yeah, it's a complicated. What year was this?
5-6 years ago.
Oh, all right. So it was, not nearly as dangerous.
I think maybe it was early COVID. Maybe that's what came up.
Oh, right.
It got, yeah, because we were pretty far into planning it. We were going to go to Cuba first and then Colombia.
Oh, I'd love to go to Cuba.
Yeah, me too.
I want to go to North Korea.
I do not.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I lived in Korea, South Korea, for a couple years when I was younger, and I'm just somehow I'm weirdly fascinated. I've read a lot of books. I'm just weirdly fascinated with, it's the most isolated country in the world.
Yeah,
and something about it just is really interesting to me. Yeah. I mean, I watched all these videos. Like I learned. Yeah, it's the history of that country. Boy, that's an interesting one.
Yeah, you could talk with Dennis Rodman about it.
Right. I remember that was a while back when he became friends with Kim Jong. Which Kim Jong was it?
I mean, what a world! I feel like the world's gone into like someday people are going to look back and say, oh, those poor people in the early 20th century, they had no idea what was happening, but now we understand that there are like realms of space, that the solar system is moving through space, and there are realms in which the laws of probability change.
Right.
I feel like we moved into a realm where things that used to be very unlikely have become much more likely.
Right.
I mean, there must be a way to test that with, random number generators or some shit. But it just feels like suddenly there were like crazy, I forget what Super Bowl it was, but like one team was 28 points down in the fourth quarter and they came back and won. It was like, what?
Right.
That doesn't happen. And then there was, I remember, I mean, this is more science-based, but I remember there was a hurricane coming up the west coast of Mexico, and it was Category 5, and I read somewhere, and they said, well, the only reason it's Category 5 is it doesn't go up to 6. So it's Category 5 plus, It's like the things that used to be a once in 1,000-year storm, they're happening every 10 years now. And
Climate
of course,
change,
that's science, but I feel like it's happening in other things too. Just
the simulation got reprogrammed or something, or we got,
that kind of
stuck
thing.
in a different simulation of some sort.
I don't think it's a simulation, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's some energetic component. Well, I know there are energetic components to reality that we can't perceive or measure. So something yet to be discovered that's going to explain why shit got so weird so quickly.
Yeah, that'd be interesting if we actually had a scientific paper that came out with like, this is why things got weird, and I mean, I think COVID, that was part of it. But
Was that cause or effect though?
Interesting.
And have there been other periods like that? Like
It seems like every 50 years or so, there's like somehow sort of a global upheaval that happens, like in the 60s and like the 20s. It seems like but this one seems like it's more significant. But of course, everybody who's alive always thinks that their period of time is more bizarre and twisted than any other period, and maybe that's true.
Yeah, it's like a spiraling thing.
Right.
It's cyclical, but also incremental.
And I think the internet is a big part of why this one's so much, or at least feels so much more, because when you have media connecting the entire world and all the information at the fingertips, and you can find people who have the same crazy beliefs as you and connect on the internet. I think it really,
Yeah, there's an accelerating effect there.
Yeah, like that flat Earth thing. Big fan of that. That's one of my favorite things to come out of the last 10 years of
Flat Earth.
The flat earthers. Yeah.
Is that recent, or has that always
No, that's
been
enough.
there?
That started to blow up about 5. COVID, I think, did a little bit, but I think even before that, I think it was 5 or 10 years ago, that started to become more of a talked about thing. You know what I mean? And yeah, they believe we live on a flat disk, and like there's an ice wall. That there's an ice wall around the edge of the Earth, so that's why you can't get to, so you don't fall off, I guess. And it's biblical. Some of the people are biblical. It's like a firmament. There's a great documentary about these people, and at the very end they do an experiment where they shoot a laser like across a giant lake to see, and the experiment proves that the Earth isn't flat, and they're like, and then a movie ends, and it's like, oops, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's not dissimilar to the people who, predict the end times, and then the date passes.
Yeah, it was just supposed to happen. Yeah, what was the end times? What was it? With the one where the rapture was supposed to happen like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Oh, really?
See that like a Saturday, 2 or 3 Saturdays ago. Yeah, the internet was going crazy.
Oh, I didn't hear about that.
You got to get on that.
I missed it.
Yeah, but yeah, it didn't happen. But I did see somebody on whatever Instagram or something had made inflatable balloons of people and put them above their house to make it look like there were people getting pulled up into the sky to fuck with people who thought.
You ever watch 6 Feet Under?
Yeah, I love that show.
Remember how each episode begins with a death? Mm-hmm. There was one where okay, it opens, this woman's listening, she's driving somewhere, and she's got her car radio on, and it's some Christian thing, and it's talking about, you know, the rapture, and are you going to be saved, and blah, blah, blah. And then it cuts, and it's guys in a warehouse, and they've got all these inflated sex dolls that they're loading into a truck to take to a convention or something.
Right, and the back of the truck opens up.
And the dolls go up, and the
she
woman sees them and
loses her
thinks
mind.
it's the rapture, and she crashes her car
her
and
car.
dies. Yeah.
That was a great show.
That was a great show.
The last episode, I thought that was, some people said they didn't like it, but I thought the way they ended it was about as perfect as you could end a show about what that was about, you know, showing everybody getting older and,
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. Yeah, I think probably the best 3 or 4 minutes of television that I've ever seen was in that show. It was I'll include, if I remember, I'll include the video in the show notes for this episode. It's when Nate dies, and his brother, I forget his brother's name.
I forget.
The gay guy who later played Dexter.
Yeah.
He's in the hospital room with him, and there's a TV on, and what happens is Nate's lying there, and he says he's got, you know, he's just had brain surgery. I think he had a stroke or something, and you know, his head's all bandaged, and he's lying there, and he's watching this nature show, and the birds are diving into the water. And he says, I'm so tired. And his brother says, well, just sleep. I'll stay here. I'll be here when you wake up. Everything's cool. And then you see Nate's eyes close, and you go into his consciousness, basically. It's kind of like he's having a dream. And the dream, in the dream, he wakes up, but he's him, but he's not sick. It's a different life.
Right.
And there's a car honking is what wakes him up. This beep, 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 beep. And he wakes up, and he goes downstairs, and it's his brother, who in the real life, in the show, is this very trim gay guy, always dressed with a suit and tie and all that. And but in this life, he's like a kind of a hip surfer dude. He's like, yo, man, come on, we're going surfing. What are you doing? And he's like, oh, I was asleep. And he get in the van, man. He jumps in the back of the van, and their dad is driving, who's dead, whose death starts the show, right? And they go, and I won't go through the whole thing, but it's so hallucinatory and so fascinating. It captures the logic of the dream state better than anything I've ever seen.
Yeah. I'll have to go back and watch that.
Oh man, it's so good.
Yeah.
It's so moving. And the genius of it is that, you're in Nate's consciousness, you're in Nate's dream, but at some point it shifts into his brother's consciousness. And so at the end of it, it's his brother who wakes up, and you realize you're in his mind now.
Huh.
So there's like this mind meld. You pass from one consciousness to another in the dream that they're both having.
Right.
It's fucking crazy. It's interesting. In Spanish,
It was a great show.
you don't say I dreamt of you. You say I dreamt with you.
Huh. There's a lot of things. I'm trying to learn Spanish now, and there's a lot of things like that are like interesting. I can't think of any offhand, but like the way that, one culture says a sentence, or the way that they express a thought, as opposed to the way America expresses a thought. It says so much about the way the culture actually,
the way they think. Well, Spanish, one really interesting thing is love. You can say love in different ways in Spanish.
Right.
There are different kinds of love.
Right. Gusta, amor, right.
Right. Te amo o te quiero.
Sí.
I want you. I love you. Like, you would never say, I don't think you would say to your mother, te quiero, right? That's more of a desire-based love.
Right.
Whereas te amo is more spiritual.
What would I say to my mother? Me gusta?
I like my mother. Yeah. Yeah. A mí me gusta mi madre.
That's the phrase I know well because of the Manu Chao song. It's like the
right.
one, like if I know some of the like Yola Tango I can remember.
Yeah. Manu Chao's a great artist. I really like his stuff.
Yeah, that was when I was in Thailand. I lived in Korea. I was in Bangkok, and that was where, like, Koh San Road,
Yeah.
And that was, at the time, it was like the 90s. Everybody was playing Manu Chao, and that was where I learned about them.
What were you doing in Korea?
Teaching English, actually. Yeah. That was
In
a trip.
Seoul?
Huh?
In Seoul?
I was in Incheon at first, which is on where the airport is and all that, and then I eventually was in Seoul for like I think a year and a half, just kind of freelancing. I was with a school in Incheon, and then I started freelancing, like just doing different, which was really interesting. Is you'd go into people's houses. One woman would just pay me like I don't know how much money, but just to like hang out with her 2 little boys and just go get ice cream.
Yeah.
Because they just want a white person to come and But yeah, it was a really interesting experience being the other, like it's such a homogenous country, and I think most Americans don't experience that experience of being the one who doesn't look the same and getting stared at because you don't look the same. And I think it's a good experience for people to have because it puts a lot of things into perspective, It's also kind of annoying after a while, like be on the subway and just getting stared at because I used to take pictures of the people when they would stare at me. I would take my camera out and start. They didn't like that.
How old were you?
I turned 30 there, so I was like between 29 to like 31, 32.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, ate dog. That was interesting. It wasn't very good though. They don't put the signs, don't say, all the restaurants there, it just says, like the pig restaurants, the pork restaurants, just a picture of the pig. The cow restaurants, picture of the cow. There's no picture of a dog for the dog restaurant, but it says like, food for the good of the. It's always about the male libido. A lot of these weird foods, and they think that dog is good for like, male libido. And I was hard for like a week after I ate that dog. So, so it's true. It's true.
It works.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a strange thing in Asian cultures that the whole male virility seems to be a huge concern.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're going to eat ground up tiger bones and bear paws.
Always the weird things that are, it's always
snake.
About, yeah.
It's always about getting it up. It's like, is it, maybe there's so much soy in the diet.
There is a lot of soy. And fermented food, yeah.
Yeah. Well, fermented food's okay, but soy is an estrogenic compound. It has a lot of estrogen in it. So too much soy can fuck with your testosterone.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, how much soy is too much soy? I guess is the question because I ate a lot of hummus.
Is there soy in hummus?
Like soybeans, yeah, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's chickpeas. It's chickpeas.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Brains.
No, you're okay.
Brain, I'm all right. Yeah, I don't eat a lot of soybeans though. I mean edamame now and again, but
yeah, soy. Tofu, tempeh.
Oh, right. I'm not a big tofu.
Soy sauce, obviously. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What was I going to say?
Something about erections, probably.
No, nothing about erections.
So what's next for you? You're kind of like in a transitional period of your life?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm trying, I got laid off and I decided to just lean into it. And
you're doing a podcast.
Yeah, I've been meaning to start this podcast for years. And like 10 years ago, I had this thought of like that I've met friends. I was living in New York at the time and I, had these friends that I met in New York, but I really knew nothing about their lives up until they met me. And so I actually did a bunch of recordings with my friends and was just like, let's sit down and do like just a recording interview. And it was super interesting because you get to know somebody like their childhood and all that. And I thought, oh, there's something interesting here. But didn't actually do it. And then my nephew, who's 15 now, 15. And he was visiting me this last spring. And, he's a teenager, so we weren't talking a whole lot. But then I was like, do you want to record a podcast? And as soon as he got those headphones on and the mic in front of him, he was opening up like he never had before.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, there's something here. And so yeah, I just tried to I got some friends to do some interviews, and then I got some other people that I just thought were interesting on the internet to come in, and then I did the travel log as I was traveling across the country. I'm still trying to figure out exactly what the podcast is, but generally it's like me trying to find connection after working alone for 4.5 years, and also giving other people a chance to connect, but also exploring the idea of connection. I don't know. I'm still figuring it out, but people seem to like it.
What's it called?
1F Jeff.
1F Jeff.
Yeah.
Oh.
I didn't know what to call it, and then somebody was like, you know, because I'm on the internet, my handle is always 1F Jeff, like my website's 1F Jeff,
Right.
and so they're like, you should just call it 1F Jeff.
So why do you have 1F in your name?
Because I was pretentious when I was in college, and I took the other F off.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, and actually I interviewed a guy on my last episode who's also named Jeff Taylor with 1F.
Really?
Yeah, there's actually a few of them. I'm friends on Facebook. Yeah.
Huh.
So anyway, I interviewed him just because it was, it was funny. And he took his off for the same exact reason. He was in college and he was pretentious. He took the other F off. So, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It seems ineffective as far as pretentious gestures go.
Yeah, but I've saved a lot of time because I don't have to write that second F.
Yeah.
Like over the years, that adds up.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that'll add up.
And it's pronounced the same.
That's why I'm saying it seems like if you want to be pretentious, you need to force people to pronounce something differently.
I mean, as a joke, sometimes I'll be like, no, it's actually
not
Jeff.
Jeff.
You clip it. You've got to clip it.
It's Jeff or something. You know?
Yeah. No, I'm just going to go. It's worked out well because this was like, when I did it, it was like 90s, mid-90s. So, and the internet wasn't really a big thing then. But as it turns out, like, for my video editing stuff and all that, it's been very great because there's a ton of Jeff Taylors.
Right.
But, just 1F Jeff Taylors, like, I get the first result.
There aren't that many.
Yeah.
So is your email Jeff with 1F Taylor at gmail.com?
Yeah.
Really? You got it?
I got it.
Wow.
Yeah. I was in there early.
The other 1F Jeff
pissed.
must be pissed off.
I've had people offer me to buy the URL 1fjeff.com for like $3,000, and no, the number's got to be higher than that.
Yeah. Oh, you got the URL too.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Sometimes I get annoyed because there'll be like a new platform comes out, and I'll have to get like 1F Jeff something else. I'll have to add like 73 because that's the year I was born or something stupid, and that frustrates me because I don't.
You're accustomed to just
I want to be
that guy.
only 1F Jeff, but
It's a sense of entitlement.
Yeah, a little bit.
I'm detecting here 1F Jeff.
Protecting my brand. Yeah. That feels dark to say, just protecting my brand, but this is the world we live in right now. Yeah. So yeah. But the podcast has been great because like I'm not good at, you work alone, and I was not great about reaching out to people, and like, I live alone in my house, and yeah, it was really isolating, and it's been really good to like, I mean, it feels good to sit down and talk to somebody for an hour or two and kind of go deep with them and, give them space to tell their story too, because I feel like a lot of people don't. How often do you sit down and like, are you like forced to sit down and just talk to somebody? Like, we have to continue talking. If this conversation starts to die, we got to keep it going, and that's unlike any other kind of situation, like you're at a bar talking to a friend, the conversation kind of dies out. You're like, all right, well. And yeah, I kind of think that's where it gets into interesting places, when you're like forced to keep going, that's when you start to get interesting.
You ever hitchhike?
No.
I think podcasting's a lot like, it reminds me a lot of hitchhiking because of what you're talking about, that there's like there's an aspect of it that's kind of contrived and forced that, here we are in this car and
Right.
I don't want you to kick me out because
Right.
it's
I
raining
need to be
out there and
entertaining
it's
for you.
dark and I'm
Yeah.
trying to get to, wherever the hell I'm trying to get to. And yeah, so there's, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's the kind of thing that for me started out, the hitchhiking, it starts out with some fake sincerity in the sense that, oh, hey, I'm going to pretend I'm interested in you because you stopped and picked me up. And,
Right.
Even though you're not the kind of person I would ever really talk to in normal life.
Right.
But then after doing that for a while, I found that my sincerity wasn't fake, that I was actually really interested in these people, and the exposure to people I would never have come across otherwise was actually really interesting.
And you find places like of connection, right?
Yeah. Or just like, I mean, I guess that's a good way to say it is connection, but it's also appreciation for someone that's totally alien to me.
Right. Right.
A lot of, I hitchhiked when I was very young. I was in college. I hitched across America a couple times, and from Montreal to New York, and from Seattle to LA, I guess.
That's ballsy. I mean, back then I guess it wasn't as It seems more nefarious.
It was
or dangerous.
pretty. It was the end of
Yeah.
hitchhiking. It
Right.
was the early '80s,
Mm.
so it was definitely, we were into the, well beyond the Zodiac Killer and
Where it was a little bit, yeah.
all that shit. I wouldn't do it now if I were young. I mean, I'd do it here, where everybody, but.
Right.
But yeah, the people that I met some real interesting characters that I never would have met otherwise. Lonely, closeted gay guys. A lot of it's that.
And would they tell you, like, as you're going, would they tell you that they're gay at a certain point, or was it just
Different
because in the 80s it was a different
situations, but a lot of it was, I remember just this feeling of sadness of like, a guy in his 50s or 60s, kind of like conservative Christian guys just out cruising around looking for, like, to have a connection with someone who doesn't know him, has no way of,
right.
like
Right.
total anonymity.
Right.
And they'd generally they'd hint at it, and so you have a girlfriend.
Oh, I see. So sometimes you were getting picked up because they thought you could, yeah.
They would, there was that, and a lot of it was, kind of Christian, like charity,
Right.
like, I'll
Right.
stop because you need help, and also I'm going to tell you about
Yeah.
Christ, and
Yeah.
you're going to see the light and all that. Which was always an interesting thing to finesse,
Right,
because you
right,
don't want to
right.
tell them, like, you don't want to close, like,
Yeah,
you want them to think there's a chance of a sale,
Yeah, yeah.
until you get to your exit or
At
whatever.
a certain point, yeah.
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 I remember one guy, it must have been like in Nevada or somewhere, like way out in the desert, like desolate. And he was laying the Christian thing on real heavy. And I don't remember what happened, if he was being aggressive with me or threatening or what, but I got kind of pissed off and was just like, okay, enough of that. Like
Drop me off here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, yeah. And he pulled over and dropped me off. And then I realized that I was, like, there was a prison there. And there were all these signs saying, do not pick up hitchhikers. And I was like, oh, I'm going to walk 30 miles now. Yeah.
The joke's on you.
Yeah.
It turns out Christ was the way.
Yeah. I took the wrong way.
Yeah, I dated a born-again Christian when I was in my 20s. That was interesting.
Wait, didn't you tell me something? Was that in Korea?
No.
You dated someone in
I mean,
Korea.
I was
There's
living in
some-
Korea when we were dating, but we started dating in Cleveland before that. But yeah, she was a born-again Christian. She moved to Israel, to Jerusalem to go get her master's in religious studies, and I moved to South Korea to teach English.
Right.
And yeah, so she, at one point, we were talking about getting married, and she said she couldn't marry somebody who wasn't a Christian. And I really love this woman, so I was like, well, I should at least find out. Maybe I'll try. Let me give it a shot. So I read the entire Bible, whole thing. Quite boring, frankly.
Yeah.
And thought about it, and tried praying and stuff. And at the end of it, it didn't take. Too many problems. But it turns out she ended up meeting a Jewish guy in Israel and falling in love with this Jewish guy, and then she moved to New York and converted to Judaism. So she's a Jew now.
And what were you raised as?
I was raised Catholic, and I guess I'm still a Catholic according to the rules.
Because you got baptized.
Confirmed is the thing you have to
Oh,
get.
you were
to get
confirmed.
confirmed, yeah.
No, I
yeah.
never got confirmed.
Well, you're not a Christian then.
But I am circumcised, so.
Yeah, I mean they circumcised us all back then. Let's be clear, yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
I mean, you should get some credit for that, Jesus.
You would think so.
Jesus.
What kind of credit?
A few heaven credits.
Yeah, maybe we'll get a more comfortable cloud up there.
Yeah.
You ever heard that Louis C.K. joke where he's like, wouldn't it be funny if you go to heaven and you're like, really? It's like a guy with a beard and everything? Like, come on. Yeah.
Louis C.K.'s not going to heaven.
Yeah, I mean, those are all tricky ones, that whole cancel culture thing that happened back then. It got a little out of control.
Yeah, for me, the worst was the case of a psychiatrist at Columbia. He taught at Columbia University. He was, on the board of all these hospitals, very prominent psychiatrist. And there was a photograph on Instagram of this model from, I think she's from Ethiopia. And she's known as like the Ebony Queen or something. Like she's black, right? Totally black. And that's kind of her claim to fame, that she's beautiful, but she's also extremely black.
Right.
And there was a photograph that she posted, or someone posted of her, I don't remember, like sitting at the edge of a bed with white sheets and white pillowcases and a white wall behind her. And so her, the exposure of the photograph really accentuates the darkness of her skin. And people were commenting how beautiful it was and, whatever. And this guy said, whether a freak of nature or not, she's certainly a beautiful woman. He got fired from all his positions. He was, publicly humiliated. She claimed to be, devastated by being called a freak.
Of course.
And
I mean, it's not the best wording, let's be clear, but like that's an over response, yeah.
Well, LeBron James is a freak of nature. Mike Tyson's a freak of nature.
Right. Yeah.
The guy who holds the world record for the 100-meter dash is a freak of nature.
Right.
There's nothing inherently negative about saying someone's a freak of nature. It just means they're outside of the normal distribution of any given trait.
Sure. I guess it's probably, in this case, it was probably because the trait was blackness,
Right. Which,
right.
Nobody's there's nothing inherently negative about being black.
No, of course not.
So,
but that actually, you're right. I mean,
so I don't see what his sin is. I don't see what his crime is.
No.
It's like, I don't get it. It seems to me that the people who are offended are expressing racism, not him.
Right. That's interesting. I mean, I could certainly understand why that would blow up as an offensive thing, but if you actually dig into it, then...
He wasn't expressing racism. He was simply saying she is one of the darkest skinned people I've ever seen. Therefore, she's outside of the normal distribution of that particular trait. But there's nothing inherently negative about it unless you think being black is negative.
Right. Yeah,
right?
I get it. Yeah.
If someone's 7 feet tall, you say, well, wow, he's a freak of nature. But you're not saying, there's something inherently inferior about it.
It's the freak word that I think, freak is a weird word because it could be positive or negative in a way.
Sure. Rick James, super freak.
Right.
She's super freaky. And then it turns out he's got a woman chained up in his basement.
That's right. He sure did.
He went to prison for that.
He sure did.
I don't know if she was a super freak or you're the super freak, Rick. Yeah.
Well, if you write super freak, there's probably something going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, just talking about cancel culture, that one was so unjust. And the Aziz Ansari one, like, what was his sin?
There's a lot of them. It got out of hand. Yeah.
Woody Allen, I just heard an interview with Woody Allen the other day.
He was on like the Bill Maher podcast. Yeah.
No, I didn't see. I saw some clips of that, but I guess he's doing the rounds because he has a novel out.
Yeah.
The one I heard was with Barry Weiss on Free Press.
Right.
But it was interesting because, she asked him about all the, I guess Bill Maher probably did too, but all the, controversy about things he was accused of and all that. And it was really interesting because he was so chill about it.
I know the same thing on Bill Maher too. Yeah, he's like, yeah.
And it's because he's like this famously neurotic, if you said neurotic American man, Woody Allen would probably be what comes to most people's minds.
Right.
And yet here he is being, vilified publicly, and he was basically like, I know I didn't do it, and I don't really care. Yeah.
That's basically, that's what he said. And I think Woody Allen's kind of, marrying your stepdaughter is it's a weird thing to do.
But not illegal.
No, not at all. And I don't think he did the other stuff, but nobody wants to hear that. They want to hear that he's bad. And the funny thing about the Bill Maher one was, like, at one point he said, he was asking about Trump, and he was like, Woody Allen said something to the effect of, like, yeah, I would like to work with Trump because I would like to direct him. And she was kind of saying that I would want to direct him and make him do better things. But of course, the media's headline was, Woody Allen says he wants to work with with Trump.
Right.
And it's like, come on.
Yeah.
The mainstream media is the problem.
Yeah, you can't win with media. Although
No.
you've been on the other side of that, right?
Yeah, and they're I think a big part of the problem too. That 24-hour news cycle and the nonstop punditry, and we have to be divided. We have to have. There's no middle ground. You have to stay on either side of this because that's the way we like you to be. We want you to hate each other so much that you're not paying attention to the way we're continuing to fleece the country and profit off of our offices. Yeah. And the media is even complicit because then the corporate money, it's all the political media complex and all that.
Yeah, they make money from the drama.
Yeah, and Trump's making a fortune off of this presidency. I mean, it's like the number of things that he's done that, like, if Democrats even tried to do it, it would be like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I saw a quote from Hannah Arendt.
Arendt, I think.
Arendt.
That's how I always thought it was. Hannah Arendt. It's DT, isn't it? HR. Anyway.
She should have changed her name.
Yeah, just to make it easier for
that
people
last
to
T
say.
off,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a name I've read thousands of times, but never really heard pronounced, I don't think. But she said something about how, I guess she was talking about the rise of fascism. But she said something about how the sort of embrace of cruelty and the like adolescent delight in flouting conventional norms and all that was refreshing for people because it exposed the hypocrisy upon which the culture had been based. And I feel like that's really what's going on now, where it's, what we're talking about with the sort of polite country club corruption that's been going on for decades and decades.
Right, let's take the mask off.
Yeah, and someone comes along and says, well, no. Well, of course I don't pay taxes. I'm not stupid.
Right.
Right. Why would I pay taxes? I'm a millionaire. I hire people to make sure I don't pay taxes. Like, there's something refreshing about that.
Yeah, and the only reason he could do that is because he had all his own money, Like, he's a rich guy.
Money.
So, right,
Yeah.
his dad's money,
Yeah.
right? But whatever. So he could say, fuck you to everybody.
Yeah.
Kind of did.
Yeah, that, to me, I despise Trump, but there are things about him that are refreshing. One of them is all these people who have fuck you money who never say fuck you. Including the people who aren't saying fuck you to Trump right now, which is why he doesn't respect them.
Yeah.
It's like if Jeff Bezos can't say fuck you to Trump, who can? Or Musk or whatever. It's like, what is the purpose of all that money if it doesn't buy you the freedom from having to kiss somebody's ass?
Well, you want more money. I think that's the thing.
But why? It doesn't.
I think
if this, it's like having more food. You can't eat more food.
Right, but I think that, like, there's an emptiness in a lot of these people's souls, and a lot of people just in general, that they're trying to fill with something. And I think that, the line always, the bar keeps going up, right? So I think that once you start accumulating money, or even becoming successful in any field, you keep wanting to get higher and higher. And I think it becomes somewhat of an addiction, because if you're not your money, then who are you? Then I have to examine myself and try to, realize, because the happiness doesn't come, because they're still not happy and they still have more and more money. You know what I'm saying?
This is a good time for a commercial break. Those of you who are not supporting the podcast at $5 a month or $50 a year are really missing out, because I need that money. I need it so bad. Please, please send me your money. I need more Yeti cups.
Wow, that's quite a commercial you just did there. I think you're going to get quite a few more subscribers.
You think so? You think people are going to sign up?
Yeah.
I've got 9 Yeti cups. I need 11.
Why do you need so many Yeti cups?
Because I need to drink 11 cups of coffee at the same time.
Oh.
I might have 11 people come by. Who knows?
Oh, so it's just in case.
Just send me your money. It doesn't matter what I'm going to do with it.
Yeah, my mom has a lot of plastic cups in her. She's like, tons of these plastic cups. And I'm always like, why do you have? She's like, but what if all these people come over?
Yeah.
Like, so she has 100 cups ready for the big party that's suddenly going to happen at her house.
I don't know. I'm not very. I'm kind of anti-consumer in most things, but I do have a problem with Yeti cups.
Huh? Interesting.
Anya has pointed it out. She's like, "You got another fucking Yeti cup?"
I have one and I never use it.
Why not?
Because I don't drink coffee out of those. Number one, I drink out of a mug, right? And I just carried my water bottle, which is the Hydro Flask brand. If we're going to go.
Oh, you're a Hydro Flask boy.
I'm a Hydro Flask boy. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. What is it? The Visco girls. That's what they. The Visco girls would. It was like a thing 5 years ago, and it's like a baggy sweatshirt and a Hydro Flask with stickers on it. So yeah, I guess I'm a Visco boy in some way.
Or
Yeah.
maybe you're about to go Visco trans on us.
I don't think so.
You got
I
the
don't
stickers.
feel that in me. Yeah.
You
yeah.
do have a lot of stickers.
I don't think the stickers necessarily mean that I'm trans.
So what's coming up in your on your podcast? Do you sort of plan guests, or you just meet them as you go?
Yeah, no, I plan them out. Like, I'm arranging a few interviews, but like this one, I'm just recording. A lot of people say that they like to hear me just like, because when I was on the road trip, I just kind of would be driving and rambling about wherever I was, and and a lot of people say they really love that. So I'm trying to do more of those, and not make it just about. Have you ever heard the podcast The Rumble Strip?
No.
It's a really great podcast out of Vermont. This woman does these like kind of audio diary kind of things where I don't know how to describe. Some of them are just her thoughts, but some of them are interviews with people, and some of them are like talking about a place and talking to different people at that place, like this pond that they all went to. And it's really interesting storytelling. But it kind of inspired me in a way to see what I could do and do different things and try to, make it whatever it wants to be. But that makes it hard for people to understand. Like, I need people to understand what they're going to get into when they start listening to the thing. So at some point I need to have some sort of a concept, but I don't know. I'm still only 20 episodes in, so.
I don't know if you really need a concept.
There's all the information on the internet about podcasting. It really is too much for me because, there's a lot of people that are like a big problem with you need to have a fairly specific, if you're just like conversations with interesting people are like, oh, that's every fucking podcast, right? So, yeah, it needs to be more than that. But then I looked at your description and yours is very simple. Yours is just like, one sentence and very straight and to the point.
And kind of sarcastic, if I remember.
It didn't feel sarcastic.
Isn't it like small batch, handcrafted? I'm sort of making fun of that whole.
No, I don't think it is. I think it's more sincere. Maybe you changed it without remembering.
Yeah,
I'll look
could
it up.
be.
But
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I have seen that advice. You got to be specific because you're trying to capture people who are interested in chainsaw art, or whatever.
Right.
But I feel like there's another realm in which it's just people get used to you and they just want to hang out with you.
Right, and I think that's kind of the line I'm trying to walk on. Because my mom wants me to just do me talking. Because when I was on the road trip, she's like, at first she was the first person that responded to the podcast, and she was like, couldn't get through it. Maybe it's just my age. And I was really upset because like the very first review from my mother.
And she's the one who said you nailed it with the movie.
Yeah, but then I actually thought about it because it really bothered me, and then I thought about it, and a couple of days later, I called her up and I was like, Mom, or I texted her or something, and I was like, Mom, I know you didn't mean it, and I know you maybe don't entirely do podcasts or whatever, but it really kind of hurt my feelings when you put a lot of work into this, blah blah blah. And she was like, I'm so sorry. And then she texted me 2 days later. She's like, well, I listened to more podcasts, and now I understand what they are, and yours is very good.
Sounds like my mother.
Yeah, and now she loves it. Now she's like, oh, I love your podcast. It's just like you're sitting and talking to me. And I'm like, all right.
Yeah. My mom listens to mine. Hi, Mom. And
My mom will probably listen to this.
and
one
it's
time.
cool. And I'm really happy she's interested. And, it's nice that, we stay in touch.
Yeah, it
in
makes
that
you feel
sense.
connected to you. Yeah.
But there's sometimes, because of my research and my life, sometimes the podcast is, I'm talking to a sex worker or a porn star or, whatever. And I'm kind of like, God, I wish Mom weren't listening to this.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way. And in some ways, my podcast has been like sometimes a way for me to communicate things that I would never say directly to my mom. Not on purpose, but like, oh, should I leave that in? Because, but yeah. In one of the episodes that I got a little bit too deep about family stuff, she didn't like that one. But she didn't exactly say why, but she just didn't like it.
Yeah.
But I knew why.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you can't just make a podcast for your mom, though.
Well, there's an idea.
Right? Podcast for my mom.
Yeah. Yeah. This is for you, Mom.
Well,
Every
let's
episode.
Start a new one. Yeah. But
people,
then
people can like listen in if they want, but
Right.
it's really for Mom.
Right.
Yeah.
Memories of childhood and so forth.
Are you going to have your mom on as a guest?
I would love to, but I don't think she wants to do that.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
You should
Well,
ask her.
I mean, I was going to make. You should ask her. Yeah. I was making a. I was trying to record and I did a few. I was thinking I wanted to record like to keep family history and record interviews with family members just to talk about stories so that, and yeah, my mom didn't want to do it. Yeah, I think my sister would do my podcast.
A friend of mine just wrote a book. I think it's just out like this week or coming out soon called, I think it's called One Last Thing Before You Go, How to Interview Your Parents.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's a really good book. Kyle Tierman wrote it. I'm going to have him on to talk about it. But yeah, it's very much about, how do you get into these conversations, and there are techniques that he outlines, but then he intersperses it with his own conversations with his parents, who are very interesting people. You ever heard of a film? Oh, what the fuck's it called? It's like a conspiracy film. It's very well known. All about like the free energy thing and all this kind of hocus pocus pseudoscience stuff. Oh, fuck.
Citizen Kane? No.
No. Fuck, I forget what it's called. Anyway, his mother and stepfather produced that.
All right.
And it's very controversial. So a lot of it's him respecting them as people, but
Also
feeling like he can't connect to them. They're like essentially flat earthers, right?
Right,
And it's
right.
like, well, how do you relate to someone you love who
bridge that
believes
gap,
things that are unbelievable to you? So,
Yeah. I have a friend in Columbus whose mom is like QAnon. Still, and yeah, she says they just don't talk about it.
yeah.
But she doesn't. I mean, it's hard for QAnon people to not talk about it, so it's always kind of infiltrating the. Is he still doing that? The QAnon people? Is that still happening? I don't even know. Like, is he still posting that whole thing?
I don't
Whatever
know.
happened to that?
It's
was
one
a
of those
weird-
things. It's like Antifa. Like, is there any there? Is there any?
Yeah.
Is there anyone organizing these things, or is it just like
Right.
a spontaneous eruption of lunacy?
Yeah, I don't know. The QAnon one though, it's a wacky one.
Yeah.
So
All right. Well, let's wrap this up. I got a construction project that's about to begin.
Yeah, gotta finish the living room.
My carpenter shows up here in a few minutes. So,
How do you? Does it drive you crazy all day hearing the banging?
yeah.
Get some noise canceling headphones or something.
Yeah. No, the thing is, I'm like on call too, because either we're working together
Oh, right,
or he'll be working on things and he'll be like, "Hey, you want this done this way, or what wood do you want to use here? What's going on?" So I'm always like answering questions and
Right.
"Hey, can you order some more of these screws? We're almost out of screws." And okay,
So you're like the assistant,
yeah, I'm part boss, part lackey.
right?
You
need the hammer?
Yeah. I do spend time handing him tools if he's up on a ladder. Today
Right.
he's going to be up on a ladder putting silicone around the window frames.
Big fan. Around the windows.
Yeah.
Well, it's
So,
gonna look great. I mean, it already looks great, but
yeah. I can't wait to live in it. I'm really tired of this. Because I can't write, I can't read, I can't like.
Why not?
Well, because I'm
Oh,
on
hammering.
call.
Oh,
There's
you're the
noise
assistant.
and there's like
Right.
constant interruption.
Right.
So it's hard to, do my thing.
And how much longer does it take?
Oh, I think another month maybe.
Huh?
Yeah.
Well, that's not too bad.
Yeah, we just have to put the floor down in the big room
Yeah.
and do the walls in the other smaller room. But yeah, we're pretty much done, and then it's just spend a lot of money on shitty quality furniture.
Right, fill it up. Right.
Yeah,
You gotta
fill it
fill
up
the
with
nest.
crap.
Gotta start the fill the nest.
Yeah.
Fill the nest.
One thing I'm looking forward to is I want to buy like a nice stereo system, like what I had in high school. You know,
Right.
speakers, receiver, amplifier. Like,
Right.
I want to kind of get back into that.
Like
although I
you can do
don't
the
have
vinyl
any-
thing. You can do the vinyl thing.
No.
Yeah, I don't recommend it. I'm trying to sell mine now because I never listened to them.
Really?
I have like a bunch, and I got into it, and I was like, nah. When I first got them, I'd listen to them, but I just don't. And I realized I'm more of a singles guy than a whole album guy. Like I want the best thing of the thing.
You
I don't
have
want
like
the whole.
a fear of commitment. Is that what it is?
You think that's what it is? I don't know. I was thinking about this yesterday when I was thinking about. I was watching like the highlights. There was a football game, Denver versus the Giants, where they came back. Blah blah blah. And I don't watch like whole games unless they're like in the playoffs. The team, you know. But I just watched the highlights, and I thought, oh, that's something about me is that I like the highlights, even with that and with like music. Like I like the singles. And I'm trying to think maybe that's a fear of commitment, but I don't. Maybe it is.
So what if they made like mini singles where it's just the best parts of the song?
I mean, it really depends on how that was given to me. Because if it was like, was it 5 seconds or 10 seconds, I feel like I wouldn't.
Like In the Air Tonight, it would just be
The drum part.
do-do-do-do-do-do-do.
But that drum part doesn't exist without the rest of the song.
Yeah.
You know.
But you know it. You know the rest of the song already.
You do, but
so
it's
you
the
could
vibe.
just
No, I feel like I want the whole song. I just want the best songs. Like I like the singles. I'll listen to a whole album now and again, but generally speaking, with I'm just shuffling all the singles.
yeah.
Yeah, and I always wish that I could be an album person because I know people who just listen to whole albums all the time.
Is that an age thing?
I don't know.
Because I mean, I'm older than you, and I came up when I came up. Albums mattered.
Yeah, me too.
Like, not all of them, but there were like Dark Side of the Moon is an album.
Yeah, for
to
sure.
listen to singles from that is kind of missing the point.
Right, for sure. That's one I'll listen to beginning to end. And back in those days, it was like you'd buy, I only had so much money, you'd buy a CD or whatever, and that's the thing you had to listen to over and over because you didn't have Spotify or whatever.
Right.
Every song you ever could think, every song ever at your fingertips at all times, which is a blessing and a curse, really.
Because albums, people don't make albums anymore. There is not like,
Yeah, not a lot of people.
oh,
I mean,
this
there's
is
still-
going, this will be the third song on side B. That's where it fits in. You know,
Right.
Like nobody thinks that way.
Right, there's not a lot of like concept albums anymore.
Yeah.
There's no Pink Floyd The Wall being made.
No.
Yeah. But yeah, so you had to listen to the same thing over and over. So I guess I was an album guy back then because I had to be.
So no, I'm not going to get into vinyl.
No, don't. And if you do, you should let me know because I'll sell you mine.
Yeah. No, I don't want to. But I do want good speakers, and I want, I want something that sounds really good. Because we got this new room.
Yeah,
so,
I know. And
let's-
there's nobody
let's
really
do
around,
it.
so you can play it loud.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely no neighbors.
Yeah, well, that'll be exciting. And then you can hook it into your video system too, and you can
Yeah,
have like.
for movies.
Yeah.
We're going to have movie nights.
Yeah.
Invite a bunch of people over. make
What's the
some
first one you're going to
popcorn.
show?
I don't know. I've got a list of like 50. One recent one that got on the list is Annie Hall.
Oh.
I'd like to see that
God.
again.
Man, I love that movie.
Yeah.
Woody Allen was a master filmmaker.
Yeah, and Diane Keaton, just died. So a lot of it, it's cool because a lot of the films are films I want to see again that Anya's never seen.
Oh, right on. Yeah.
So, because she's 27 years younger than me. So, there's that component of it. The pleasure of introducing her to something that I know is really good.
Yeah.
And then the pleasure of watching it again. I taught high school briefly in Spain, and I don't remember what excuse I had, but I showed the class The Graduate.
Oh my God, I love that movie.
And it was like 20 minutes per class, and then we talk about that 20 minutes, and so we really just like took off a bite and then chewed it. And I had seen it probably 3 or 4 times before then, but that was really interesting to show it to these kids and,
For sure.
talk about, the commentary on the culture and changing sexual mores and, the whole thing about career, plastics.
Right.
Plastics.
I did the same thing. I taught a film class remotely in 2020, and I showed them The Graduate. This is 2020, and it was interesting that their take on it from their upbringing and so forth was very much focused on that she is a like toxic sexual assaulter in a way. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, because that's never even a thing.
Right.
It kind of crossed my mind, but from one angle, I could see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just love Dustin Hoffman's performance in that is just chef's kiss.
Yeah.
Like that sound he makes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, everything about that film is spectacular.
And that he was in the line for unemployment. Like, he was broke as broke can be when he got that role.
Right. It was supposed to go to Robert Redford. Mm-hmm. It was actually written for Robert Redford.
Yeah. Which would have been a whole different, and not right. It wouldn't have worked.
Well, that's I really enjoy thinking about that when I read about, this role had been offered to,
right.
Like, one of my favorites is Silence of the Lambs. Mm-hmm. Anthony Hopkins was like third choice.
Who was?
Jack Nicholson.
Oh.
Was offered that role.
I think that's too on the nose.
Yeah.
Particularly after The Shining, I feel like that's just way too on the nose, because like you could already be.
Yeah.
Jack Nicholson's already got creepy, but Anthony Hopkins didn't really have creepy to me before that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Was Legends of the Fall before that?
I don't know. I've never seen that one.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dog Day Afternoon. That's another one you should see. That's
Al Pacino.
an amazing film. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The camera just moves and moves and moves in that movie.
Who directed that?
Sidney Lumet.
Oh, right.
Yeah, he did that, and then Serpico was the next one, 2 in a row. Yeah, the 70s, man. The 70s was like the best period, I think, of American filmmaking.
Yeah.
Because ugly people started being actors, and they were amazing actors. So
yeah, Elliot Gould really opened it up.
Right, a lot. Yeah, yeah.
But also there was this kind of energy, like on sets. You could see that people were like, when they finished filming for the day, they were fucking and getting high, and probably getting high before they were filming. Like MASH. Mm-hmm. Do you remember that movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was just this kind of feeling of, like, there was a party going on, and they were making a movie while they were partying.
Well, the studio system had kind of died, so, like, they were kind of like, it was a free-for-all in a way, and people were like Easy Rider, like, that story of that movie getting made was just getting a bunch of money tossed at them. Go, make your hippie movie.
Yeah.
And, yeah, and they're like literally getting high in the movie.
Speaking of Jack Nicholson, what a great cameo that was.
Indians. Isn't that what he said after?
Wait.
Indians.
Yeah, you ever seen 5 Easy Pieces?
A long time ago, yeah.
That's an amazing film. Early Jack.
He's still alive, I think.
Yeah, barely.
Doesn't go to the Oscars anymore.
Or does he go to Lakers games?
I don't know. Was his last thing The Departed? That was one of the last things I remember him being in, was The Departed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That movie confused me, because I kept getting the actors confused. Like, who is it? It's like the 2 Boston cops.
Yeah, it was what's his name and what's his name.
Yeah, those 2.
Those 2 guys, yeah.
They look very similar, and I kept confusing, like, wait, is this the good one or the bad one? And maybe that's the point.
That's kind of the point, yeah.
Yeah. But I found it a very frustrating movie to watch.
I liked it. I think it's interesting that Scorsese's editor is Thelma Schumacher, is a woman. Mm-hmm. I just think it's interesting that she's the editor of these a lot of them very masculine. Yeah. But then it used to be all women back in the day. It was women. They thought it was like sewing. They thought of editing as kind of being like a sewing thing. So women were all the editors back in the old film days.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
Yeah, I have a friend who's an editor, a pretty prominent TV editor. I guess he does film too, but he did all the Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, he's a Roger Nygaard. He's a funny guy, and so his sense of humor helps him edit comedy because he like gets the timing. He understands the when to let the camera pause a little and linger. Yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah, I love improvised. So like that's most of the stuff I've made has been like largely improvised, which I really like. There's a naturalism to it that I feel like you don't get.
So have you seen the new Spinal Tap?
Have not seen it yet, no.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's got mixed reviews, but I'm certainly curious. I think it's only on streaming or something. It's on like Paramount Plus or something. Yeah. I'm curious. It's very short. It's like only 80 minutes long.
I'm just amazed they did it.
I know. I know.
And they're still alive.
Yeah.
All right, let's wrap it up. 1F Jeff. Check out the podcast.
Yeah, 1F Jeff.
1F Jeff.
And yeah, 1FJeff.com. If you need anybody to edit your videos or anything, you let me know. Because, you know, I'm good. Good.
You're a vagabond, currently out of work video editor.
I've been traveling all year. It's been really great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying it.
And you're based in Ohio, right?
Yeah, for now. I'm trying to figure out an exit strategy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm trying to find remote work so I can kind of just do a digital nomad thing for a year or two.
I mean, is editing generally remote?
I mean, it wasn't. You know, after 2020, like I was with the Lincoln Project, so that was all remote. But I don't know what percentage of it. I just know it's a very difficult place to find a job right now. And yeah, but there's no reason that. I guess there's. You know, sometimes you would, like a feature film, you can't do that remotely. That'd be hard. But like a lot of the stuff I would be doing, like short form stuff for the internet or whatever, I think that's easy to do remotely. You know? I'm trying to get like more podcasting, producing kind of jobs, which I could do remotely too. Because, so who knows? But I'm happy that I've taken advantage of the fact that I've not been employed, because a lot of people would immediately start looking for another job, which seems to be misguided, right?
No, take advantage of it. Unemployment is a great opportunity
to reset your brain and try to figure out where you are
and just go places you don't go if you're have a week of vacation. You're not going to fly to Bogota for a week.
Yeah. So we'll see. Trying to find a way to make money on my own terms, but that's a difficult thing to do in today's economy. But so we'll see. But I'm grateful that I've been able to have this year. Hopefully I can continue it to more years of living an interesting life as opposed to being in my house all day editing political videos.
That doesn't sound like a recipe for mental health.
No, not so much.
All right, thank you, 1F Jeff. I got to take a piss.
Than's Chris Ryan. Appreciate you. Thanks for having me on.
Abrupt.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me
on. Hello to your mother.
Yeah, hello to your mom as well.
All right.
And there you go. There is my conversation with Chris Ryan. I hope you enjoyed it. Hi, Mom. Hi, Chris Ryan's mom. I hope that wasn't too difficult to listen to. If you enjoyed this episode, please send it to somebody else that you know and love, or know and hate. Doesn't matter to me. Just send it to somebody. It's how these things spread. And if you're not subscribed to the podcast, please do go to whatever platform you're using, but ideally Apple Podcasts, and click that subscribe button, because that helps the algorithm understand how good this podcast is. You can follow the podcast on Instagram at 1FJeffPod. That's 1FJeffPod on Instagram. You can follow it on a lot of other social media platforms as well if you go to the show notes. I'm not going to bore you with all of them, but most of them involve the phrase 1FJeffPod. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, confusion, bewilderment, anger, joy, elation, positive vibes, you can email me at 1FJeffPod@gmail.com. I will respond for sure and possibly read your email on the air. Once again, if you didn't do it during the introduction, please do go to patreon.com/1FJeff and subscribe. You'll get all sorts of fun new content. You'll get updates on new episodes, and you'll get a warm feeling in your heart this holiday season. Once again, I'm going to close this episode with a short poem by the legendary Rumi, who was born in 1207. Did they call that 1207 back in the day, or 1207? Whatever. It was a long time ago. Do you think I know what I'm doing? That for one breath or half breath I belong to myself? As much as a pen knows what it's writing, or the ball can guess where it's going next. Take care of yourselves, my friends. I'll see you next week.
Very good, Jeffrey.